So Advent is a wonderful season of joy and expectation, also a season of preparation, some denial, self-denial, so should have some disciplines this next month. The readings today, the first reading talks about having a hardened heart. The Israelites have had hardened hearts, and their sin is multiplied. And yet, we're all clay, and God is the potter. The closer we get to Jesus, in fact, the more our hearts would be softened, the more they would be victorious and full of charity. The further we get from Jesus, the harder the hearts. That's true of life. And so I invite you to consider tonight, is there a way where your heart might be hardened? Is there any way it could be hardened? Could it be that somebody has hurt you at some time and you've just said, you know what, I'm going to shut it off, I'm not going to relate to that person anymore, cut him or her off, we'll go our own way. And maybe there's still a little bit of bitterness left in there. Maybe there's a little hardened heart towards somebody of a different disposition. Maybe it's somebody who's ethnically different, or somebody who's politically, that's the Republican, that's the Democrat. Maybe that's the Lutheran, that's the Methodist, Catholic. I was in Rome a couple weeks ago, and I was real edified watching Pope Francis. I was with my community Companions of Christ. We're celebrating 25-year anniversary. There's about 30 of us priests and a handful of seminarians. And so we were there to celebrate and get our picture taken, but before Pope Francis came and took a picture with us, he went up and down two lines. And the two lines were filled with handicap, mentally and physically, and probably 100 people. And he took his time with each one, and he prayed over each one, and he blessed each one. And I was kind of moved. It was beautiful. Now this week he was over in Myanmar, and he's kind of speaking on behalf of this sect called the Rohingyas. We're Muslim people that have been refugee, and they're very different. And sometimes I can think of myself even, there's the fanatic Muslim who's going to kill people. And here's Francis kind of embracing some Muslims. And I think there's something in that of a witness of him recognizing first they're people. They're clay, like I'm clay. All right? Maybe we actually have some difficulties with ourselves or impatient with ourselves. Father Greg Tolis, once a priest here on campus years ago, he's deceased, but he shared how difficult it was for him to live with going to dialysis every other day for 5 hours. He had cystic fibrosis, but every other day, 5 hours of dialysis, and the frustration that could come from that. And I think about myself too. Sometimes I get frustrated with myself. I wish I could do it quicker. I wish I didn't need that much sleep, or I wish I didn't have that much fear of it, whatever it is. And so maybe sometimes we have a little bit of a hard heart about our own limitations, or about what God has done or hasn't done for us. In any case, to come closer to Christ is to have our hearts transformed, that they can be like Jesus' heart. Now I'm going to share a devotion that's just starting up. You'll be fascinated to hear this. When we think about hearts, we often think about Sacred Heart of Jesus and Immaculate Heart of Mary, right? We have that devotion. Some people put those images up in their house, Sacred Heart of Jesus, Immaculate Heart of Mary, and there are blessings that come with that. But there's a new devotion coming to the surface, the Chaste Heart of Joseph. There's been some movement spiritually in South America, and we're beginning to look at 3 hearts, not just 2, for our edification and inspiration. The Sacred Heart of Jesus, the Immaculate Heart of Mary, the Chaste Heart of Joseph. Now, when I was at St. Michael, Minnesota, we were building a new church, and we were transferring the Eucharist from one church to another. And I went to do the divine praises after this very solemn procession, and the person who was kind of helping me had typed up the divine praises. And if you recall, the divine praises at the end says, "Blessed be St. Joseph, her most chaste spouse." And there it was, CHASED, most chaste spouse. I thought, wow, he's a good-looking guy. You know? All those women are chasing that poor Mary. Chaste spouse, CHASTE, most chaste spouse, right? Okay, got that? Well, so may St. Joseph's heart be an inspiration as well as Mary and Jesus. Now in the gospel today it says to be watchful and vigilant. Stay awake. Be watchful. I have a priest friend, another note of humor, Father Kevin. Father Kevin decided that he was going to inspire his congregation. He said on Black Friday, everybody goes and does all this shopping, and many forget about God. So he said, I tell you what, he says, I'm going to have 6:30 Mass on Friday morning, Black Friday. And you come to Mass, and that'll consecrate your day. When you go all this worldly shopping stuff, you'll have a kind of grace to go with you. And Friday morning, all these people showed up. Father Finnegan overslept. And so he has the most beautiful homily for Advent. He says, stay awake. Learn the lesson. Stay awake. Well, okay. Advent is a wonderful season, a beautiful season. Season of joy, a season of hope, but also a season of discipline. I'm going to invite you to consider what you might do for this holy season. I mean, maybe you would read the book of Isaiah. It's a lot about hope in Isaiah. Maybe you would pray once a day the Divine Mercy Chaplet. Maybe you're going to take my idea of the chaste heart of Joseph and you're going to start a devotion to Joseph. Maybe you're going to do one act of charity a week for some group. Think of something, and maybe something that helps you stay awake and watch. Let's be attentive to Christ who wants to come, and truly who also wants to come into our heart and make it like His.